we want to align our tax system with what happens in other climes so that we will be on the same page when their taxes are being reviewed and being compared with Nigerian tax, so that the poor can be left to breathe.
Welcome to the Purple Diaries podcast, the Policy Innovation Center's advocacy platform where we talk about all things gender and social inclusion. At the launch of the fourth edition of the Purple Book, I had the opportunity to sit down with men and women from diverse walks of life and talk about a topic that is very much high on the mind of many Nigerians right now, and that is taxation and what it means for women, youth, and people in the informal sector. Join me in this special season series to talk about taxation, taxes, and the ordinary Nigerian. Good afternoon, sir, and a warm welcome to the Purple Diaries podcast of the Policy Innovation Center. Before we get started, you are known to me, however, you're not known to our audience. Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
All right, thank you. My name is Folunrosho. I'm a member of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Reform and Tax Policy. I'm also the managing consultant of Creston Pedabo Professional Services, a tax advisory and audit firm. I'm also currently the president of BRIPAN, the Business Recovery and Solvency Practitioners Association of Nigeria.
Wow, so you wear many hats. Yeah. We do appreciate your time. I'm excited that you're here today. So I have a confession to make, quick confession before we continue. Like I had said earlier on today, I have a PhD. I'm actually a double doc. Oh. However, don't be deceived by my titles. I am very illiterate when it comes to tax. And so the reason why I said I've been looking forward to this conversation all week is I've been wanting to lay hands on the tax experts so that they can answer some very pressing questions for me. Because a lot of the time, when we talk about tax, my experience has been that you see English words, right? I like to believe that I understand English. However, the way and the manner in which the language is used is so technical that even for someone like me at my level, it goes above my head. Right? So I think my first appeal to you, sir, is for people like me who are tax illiterate, if you can make these things as simple as possible. I think the Americans would call it tax for dummies, right? Yeah. Just water it down as simply as possible so that people like me actually are carried along when you understand what you're trying to say.
I lectured taxation for 28 years.
Okay, awesome. So, okay, you get it. So let's jump right in, shall we? My very first question is, Nigeria is currently undergoing a major tax reform. And I think what is on the minds of everybody is, what exactly is the government trying to achieve?
Thank you very much. Very good question, and it's a very good starting point. So the tax reform is to take a holistic look, or took a holistic look at our fragmented existing tax system, where so many of those taxes have become archaic. Some of them were promulgated in 1939, the Stamp Duties Act. So many of them have overlapping provisions. Some of them have become amended and on a yearly basis through the Finance Act, and so they have become disjointed. And there was a need to put it together as one tax law, harmonized, streamlined, and make more progressive. Of course, the focus is not necessarily to generate revenue, but I can assure you that is one of the major reasons to generate revenue. But on top of that, in addition, to ensure that we have a tax system that is fair, that is equitable, that is implementable, and can be amenable to digital implementation in these days of tech. And so many things are changing worldwide. And of course, we want to align our tax system with what happens in other climes, so that when we have inclusive framework by the OECD, the United Nations, we will be on the same page when their taxes are being reviewed and being compared with Nigerian tax system. So the whole lot of steps were required to be able to achieve this objective. One, revenue generation, fairness, equitable, and progressive, so that the poor can be left to breathe.
I'm very glad you said what you just said, because it then gives me, I was going to ask this question anyway, but you're talking about the poor, then gives me a perfect segue into what I was about, my next question, which is, you have used several multi-syllable words in making this opening. I've heard disjointed, harmonized, streamlined, promulgated, equitable, implementable, revenue generation. For the poor, who are many times illiterate, because our audience is very diverse, I would like you to summarize what you just so very eloquently said, which I understood. But again, not everybody who watches this podcast has that level of education. I would like you to summarize what you just so very eloquently said in a way that my grandmother would understand.
Okay. So when it comes to taxation and having the poor in perspective, the focus was to make provisions that necessarily exclude the poor from the burden of tax, either when they are buying materials for consumption, they are looking for house to rent, they are selling by the roadside, they are getting involved even in minor, simple investments. You still have some retired old grandmothers that still have investment in shares, and they still want to trade in it.
Sure.
Provisions have been made for those who are investing in shares at that quantum level, not more than 150 million in a 12-month period, to be fully exempted. And when they even...
sorry, when you say fully exempt, because those are the kind of...
Fully exempt means whatever gain they make in selling their shares, and the quantum they sell for a particular period of 12 months is not more than 150 million. That gain is not taxable.
Okay.
And even where what they sell is above the 150 million threshold, as long as they take the whole money back or part of it to reinvest, to continue to help the Nigerian capital market system, they are also fully exempt. That is the highest level of considering even the low-income earner and the poor.
Okay.
If you cascade down to those artisans who, what they thrive on is getting daily wage. If they don't get money per day, they don't survive. Harmonization is ongoing from one state to the other.
Sorry, so what do you mean by harmonization?
Harmonization is streamlining the already unlimited nuisance taxes that have been affecting the smooth running of businesses by the informal sector.
Okay.
So the idea is to streamline those taxes to manageable level and ensure that they are not multi-level.
Okay.
The approach is to reduce situation where you buy goods from Lagos, before you get to Kano, you have paid taxes in 50 places. Where the approach is to ensure that when you pay in Lagos, one way or the other, as you move from one state to the other, you don't have to be blocked by the roadside.
Again. Okay.
That is what we mean by harmonization.
Okay.
And this can only be done by each state. Why? Because the National Assembly does not have power to legislate on those subnational taxes. If you look at the Nigerian Constitution, we have what we call the exclusive, which can be made by the National Assembly. The concurrent can be made by the National Assembly and the state. And then the residual is not anywhere. So when it is not anywhere, it is left for the subnational to make it. So that is why we say that harmonization is required to take care of those things that National Assembly cannot legislate on. And that is why it's moving from one state to the other, looking at the national law, making their own law, and ensuring that that law that they are making in their own state is in congruence with the one that has been made at the national level.
Okay.
And ensuring that all the multi-level taxes are so streamlined that everyone is clear as to who to pay, where to pay, when it is paid, who to account, and how it's to be shared if there is need for multi-level sharing.
Okay, thank you very much. That is encouraging, I must say, and I think for the first time it's beginning to make sense to even me.
You should.
So thank you. I have one last question for you, unfortunately. I wish I had more time, but we are running out of time. However, before I let you go, one of the things that I have been hearing, I've had a couple other people come on this same platform, and one recurring issue that I keep hearing is, it is not that Nigerians are bad people who do not want to pay tax. The problem is a question of trust in government, right? That if Nigerians know that this money that is taken from me is going to be used to repair roads, right? So I know that as a small farmer, I have smooth roads to get to where I'm going to. Maybe I even have subsidized transportation, right? Since I'm producing food for the country. I will gladly pay the tax. And so my question for you, right? And maybe it's a multi-million naira question is, how does the government, are there any plans being put in place to engender trust? Because you agree with me that if we don't have trust, getting people to pay, the tax evasion is going to be a huge problem. So is this something that the government is considering beyond just punitive measures for those who evade tax? Are we intentionally looking for avenues or ways to engender trust within the Nigerian public so that tax evasion, it's never going to go away, but so that it becomes less of a problem?
Thank you very much. Again, Nigeria, I agree with you, are not averse to paying their taxes. In fact, we pay more taxes than those other countries that will think are paying more taxes. We pay our fair share of the tax. We raise part of our money to supply things that the tax will have been made to provide for us. 3, we have to pay taxes for our relations and friends.
Black tax.
Yes, that should have been taken care of if they are fully employed and paying their taxes. That's black tax.
So what I'm hearing is that we're already paying the tax anyway,
so
whether we realize or
tax.
not.
And that is where the trust deficit comes from. You pay so much tax, you are not getting the benefit. Nobody is saying, I'm accountable to you. And so that is a major issue. It is not the responsibility of the collecting agents to account to the payer and how much they have collected and what it was used for. It is the responsibility of government. When I say government, the ministers, the president, the governors, they're the ones that have that responsibility. And so we need somebody. I don't want to say it before he started doing it. Hopefully, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele should be able to let Nigeria know what the taxes are being used for, because that is the outstanding major issue that has been militating against payment of tax. I preach taxation every day, but it's so difficult when you cannot say, you see, if you pay, you get this thing that you have been getting. I cannot be saying you will if there are no examples. So it's a major issue. I agree totally. Government is trying to do is to be able to have a platform where every revenue is accounted for, how the revenue has been allocated is shown, and the persons or the authority that are supposed to utilize is also made known, and what they have done and what they have not done. And
all of this will be public access.
We believe that if it is not made public, then they have not done anything.
Okay.
That is where we have to go to be able to build this trust deficit. It's not about collecting 100 billion, showing us one road at Jahi. I believe the place is Jahi. Okay, that has been done by Wike. Do you know how much has gone unutilized? we need to have pure, full accountability for the revenue. And it is the government that can do it.
Thank you so very much, sir. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, ma'am.